New Yorkers have strong feelings about Donald J. Trump, a fixture of the city's tabloid culture for decades before he became president. One of the company's lawyers, Susan R. Necheles, asked him to elaborate. Trump has no morals, he said. He thinks only of himself. I think he's done irreparable damage to this country. Instead, on Monday, prosecutors will lay out charges against two of the many corporations that make up his company, the Trump Organization. They will accuse them of engaging in a years-long scheme that rewarded executives with tax-free perks. Lawyers involved in Trump-related cases may face that obstacle repeatedly in coming months, as legal drama swirls around the former president. On Monday, jury selection begins in a civil case brought by protesters against Mr. Trump and his bodyguards, who the demonstrators say violently attacked them outside Trump Tower in 2015. People might think that you want somebody who is prejudiced to one side or the other, but you really don't, she said. When you're confident in your case, you want people to listen to the evidence and make a really good decision. In Manhattan, Mr. Trump's longtime home base, it is not easy to find a person without an opinion about the former president, who before taking office made a career of grabbing the spotlight for his many business ventures and social exploits. Many New Yorkers who were summoned to the courtroom last week, some of whom said they had been hearing Mr. Trump's name for decades, were not shy about expressing their thoughts. The New York Times is not naming jurors or prospective jurors, as they are private citizens who might be harassed if identified. On Thursday, one man who had previously said he could be impartial asked to address the judge about an urgent development. His health was deteriorating just thinking about the case. I have some very strong feelings about Donald Trump, a visceral feeling in my gut. I haven't felt that in 2 years, the pale man said, standing alone before the judge and lawyers for both sides. The man said that being a potential juror had made him think again about Mr. Trump, and that affected him psychologically and physically. I got the feeling again, he said. I don't feel it's a healthy thing for me to be here. Another juror was dismissed for expressing the precisely opposite opinion. The woman, who lives in Manhattan's Murray Hill neighborhood and works at a financial services company, repeatedly used one of Mr. Trump's favorite superlatives to describe him and his businesses. He raised a great family and ran great companies, she said. I generally think he was a very good president. Image one prospective juror said he felt physically ill recalling the years of the Trump presidency. Credit Brittainy Newman for the New York Times. The inquiry accelerated in 2021, when the Supreme Court allowed the office to obtain Mr. Trump's tax returns. Shortly thereafter, prosecutors began to focus on a high-ranking executive, Alvin L. Weisselberg, who they suspected had received off-the-books perks like an Upper West Side apartment rental and leased Mercedes-Benzes. They hoped that Mr. Weisselberg would cooperate, and when he did not, they charged him and the company, specifically two of its many entities, the Trump Corporation and Trump Payroll Corp., with participating in the tax evasion scheme. The broader investigation into Mr. Trump continues, the Manhattan District Attorney, Alvin L. Bragg, has said. Late this summer, Mr. Weisselberg pleaded guilty in exchange for a promised sentence of 5 months in jail, of which he is expected to serve as little as 100 days if he fulfills the terms of his plea deal. The most important of those conditions is that Mr. Weisselberg must testify truthfully if prosecutors call on him, which they are all but guaranteed to do. Mr. Weisselberg's senior position makes him what is known as a high managerial agent of a company. Under New York law, the Trump Organization is guilty if such an agent committed a crime within the scope of his employment and in behalf of the corporation. Along with being asked about Mr. Trump, prospective jurors were asked several other questions, including about whether they could trust testimony from Mr. Weisselberg when they knew he stood to benefit from taking the stand. A retired nurse who lives in East Harlem answered that without hearing Mr. Weisselberg's words it was hard to say. The lawyers approved, and she was impaneled as a juror, but the most explosive moments of the week of jury selection concerned Mr. Trump. In a conference with the presiding judge, Juan Merchant, a prosecutor argued that simply having strong feelings about Mr. Trump was not justification for disqualifying jurors. It is about whether those feelings about Trump would prevent their ability to be a fair and impartial juror, said the prosecutor, Joshua Stainglass. Some who made the panel admitted to their opinions. I would have gone with some different Supreme Court justices, one said, but assured the court that they would be able to be impartial. Others suggested that they had strong political opinions, but left some mystery about what those might be. One notable example was a retiree from Washington Heights, who on a questionnaire said that he watched all the news he could, including information on the internet that the broadcast and cable companies won't show you. When the man was questioned further, he said his cable provider had removed international programs that he depended on, partly to get a better picture of how income inequality functioned in the United States. He said that he frequently wrote political criticism, that he had once lived in a dictatorship and that, as he saw it, Trump is a small part of a very large problem. The man said several times that he would be able to keep his opinions out of the jury room and that he would give the defendants a fair shake. Nate Schweber contributed reports